One day, you stop asking. Not because you stopped needing people, but because you stopped believing they'd be there when you did. And after enough disappointments, your mind quietly reaches a conclusion. Depending on yourself became safer than depending on someone else. From the outside, people call it independence. They call you reliable, self-sufficient, the one everyone can count on. But those are only the names people give to what they can see. What they don't see is what happened underneath it. A nervous system that learned asking for help could end in disappointment, embarrassment, guilt, or silence. So your mind adapted. Instead of risking another letdown, it learned to carry the weight by itself. And once your mind learns that lesson, it doesn't disappear. It starts showing up in your habits, your relationships, and eventually your identity. Here are 7 signs you may have learned that lesson too.
Sign 1. The I'm fine reflex. You say I'm fine before anyone even finishes asking. Not because nothing's wrong, not because you're avoiding drama, and not because you're too proud to admit you're struggling. If you say it first, no one has to decide whether your problem is worth their time. At some point, being honest about needing something came with a cost. Maybe you were dismissed. Maybe nobody noticed. Maybe someone made you feel guilty for needing help in the first place. So your brain adapted. It stopped expecting comfort and started expecting disappointment. It stopped waiting to find out if this time would be different. It started answering first, before hope could even form. You do it with coworkers who ask how you're holding up. You even do it with people who genuinely mean it. Because by then, I'm fine isn't a lie. It's a reflex. You didn't become someone who hides how you feel. You became someone who learned that hiding it felt safer than hoping someone would understand better.
Sign 2. Giving freely, flinching when it's returned. You help everyone who asks. No hesitation, no calculation. But the moment someone tries to do the same for you, something in you resists before you can say no. Someone says, "Let me grab this one." And your hand is already reaching for your wallet before they finish the sentence. I don't want to owe anyone anything, you think, without really meaning to. The more often needing people leaves you disappointed, the safer it feels to stay the giver, and the harder it becomes to ever be the one who needs something there. You're not generous because you're selfless. You're generous because it keeps you one step away from ever having to need anyone. And if someone insists on helping you instead, that's when the discomfort begins.
Sign 3. Anxiety instead of relief. They text you. "Let me know if you need anything." You stare at the message. You start typing, then delete it. By morning, you've convinced yourself you'll handle it alone. Instead of relief, something tightens in your chest. Not because you're ungrateful, not because you don't want the help. Here's what's actually happening underneath. Your nervous system has learned to treat receiving help like paying for it later. Maybe someone reminded you of everything they'd done for you. Or maybe kindness always seemed to come with expectations attached. Over time, your brain stopped filing help under safety. It started filing it under debt. You calculate what you'll owe before you even say yes. You're not ungrateful. You're just braced. Because kindness stopped feeling free a long time ago.
Sign 4. Testing people silently. You test people, quietly, long before you ever let them in. Not because you're suspicious of everyone, but because trust for you has to be earned in small, unspoken pieces. Once inconsistency shows up enough times, your brain stops assuming people are safe. It starts looking for evidence instead. You notice who shows up, who remembers, who stays consistent without being asked. You still remember exactly who canceled on you last spring, even if they don't. You're not distant. You're gathering evidence. I'm not ready to find out what happens if I'm wrong about them. Trust for you was never about hope. It was about proof.
Sign 5, disappearing under pressure. But gathering evidence isn't the hardest part. The hardest part comes when life actually asks you to rely on someone. The harder things get, the more you disappear, right when you need people most. Not because you don't want support, but because showing the struggle feels riskier than carrying it alone. Your mind starts predicting the outcome before you even try. If it already expects this will go wrong, staying quiet feels safer than finding out. If no one sees me struggling, no one can let me down by not showing up. You go quiet in the group chat. You handle the crisis first and mention it, if you mention it at all, only once it's already over. You don't disappear because you don't need people. You disappear because needing people has never felt predictable. And when depending on other people no longer feels safe, your mind finds another way to stay in control. It starts keeping score.
Sign 6, tracking what you owe people. What most people notice is that you disappear. What they don't see is what's running underneath it. You quietly track what you owe people, because even kindness feels risky if you can't repay it. A friend picks up the bill, and before your food even arrives, you're already planning how you'll cover theirs next time. I'll pay this back somehow, so it doesn't count against me. Receiving no longer feels like connection. It feels like a debt that needs to be cleared. You're not calculating because you're ungrateful. You're calculating because debt feels safer than dependence. And this is where the habit stops looking like a coping mechanism and starts looking like part of who you are.
Sign 7, the strong one identity. You built your identity around being the strong one. Nobody assigned you the role. You just noticed nobody else was filling it. Not because you wanted the title, because someone had to hold things together. Psychologists have long noticed that the roles we repeat under pressure don't stay roles. Eventually, they become part of how we see ourselves. Being the one who coped became safer than being the one who needed comfort, because coping never left you waiting for help that might not come. So you got good at it. Really good. Good enough that people stopped asking if you were okay, because you never gave them a reason to. If I'm not the strong one, who am I? You stopped asking for help so many times that eventually you stopped believing you were someone who was allowed to need it. You didn't become strong because you never broke. You became strong because breaking never had anywhere safe to land. Here's what makes these patterns so difficult to recognize. None of them feel like fear anymore. They feel like personality. After repeating them for long enough, they stop feeling like choices. They start feeling like who you are. When you step back and look at all of this together, the I'm fine, the quiet testing, the disappearing, the constant need to repay kindness, the identity built around being unbreakable, it isn't 7 separate habits. It's one adaptation, wearing 7 different disguises. None of it happened by accident. Every sign was your mind trying to keep you safe by making sure you never had to need anyone again. So maybe you were never just independent. Maybe you were never just the strong one. Maybe you were just protecting the part of you that once needed help and didn't get it. Maybe you became the person you needed when no one else could be. And after living that way for long enough, it's easy to forget there was ever another way to be. The hardest part was never carrying everything alone. It was forgetting you were ever allowed to put any of it down. You didn't build walls because you liked being alone inside them. You built them because once being open cost you more than being alone ever did. And the fact that those walls protected you once doesn't mean you have to spend the rest of your life living inside them. Maybe the next step isn't forcing yourself to ask for help. Maybe it's understanding why you stopped asking in the first place. If this helped you understand a pattern in yourself a little more clearly, subscribe. There's more where this came from.